souls, transforming worlds to a better wonder to behold. No poverty, zero hunger for the elderly or younger. Good health and well-being, good education, empowering women to become sensation. Clean water, sanitation is a right of every nation. Economic growth inclusive and sustained through industry, innovation, and purely dedication. Yeah, infrastructure be gained. Reduce inequality for sure. Make human settlements secure. Take urgent actions to combat climate change. Conserve life below water and land. Ensure we do not estrange. Justice for all, a peaceful and empathetic nations. Let us all partner to achieve these goals and provide much needed salvation. Each one teach 10, no compensation. Each one teach 10, no compensation.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. Good morning, good evening, namaste, hola, bonjour, gere maid, terve, and marapan. This is Namya Joshi, your host for the day. Welcome to episode 98 of the podcast Each One Teach 10, an amazing world of STEM, an inspiring venture where we'll be discussing that STEM is part of every day for every kid. We all will learn together how to build a STEM culture. Well, for today, I'm really excited to have my guest as Dr. Sabba Quidwai, who is an innovative educator and thought leader focused on empowering individuals to thrive in a rapidly changing world. Starting her career during the 2007 recession, she has held leadership roles such as Education Leadership Executive at Apple and Director of Innovation Leadership at USC. She is passionate about the transformative power of technology and design thinking to solve problems and foster meaningful change. Her approach emphasizes shifting organizational culture, fostering empowerment, and creating lasting, impactful solutions. It is my absolute honor to have you here, Dr. Sabah. So, how are you doing today?
Hi, I'm doing so well. Thank you so much. I love this. It's so fun to be here.
Thank you so much. So, how have you been doing today? How's the weather at your place?
It's definitely getting colder, and I'm about to get on an airplane in like a couple hours, and my flight got delayed. So I guess that was a good thing because it made the morning more relaxed.
Okay, that is really great to know. Thank you. All right. So we would love to know, the about the work that you do, and if you could just tell us about what exactly is the concept of design thinking and its importance in modern education, and moreover, like what inspired you to focus on design thinking as a tool to transform education.
So, the easiest way I like to explain design thinking is that it's basically a method and a mindset. And the fact that you have the two pieces together are very, very important when you are trying to navigate anything that is unknown. So, anything ambiguous, anything where you're like, oh, I don't even know what the answer is, anything that makes you feel like, I don't even think I can do anything about that problem. Or on the other side, if you have an idea and you're really excited to start something or try something and you just don't know how, being able to have both a method is really important, but we also know that like mindset honestly is like 80% of the work. So that's why I really love design thinking because it combines both of these elements together. Now, the reason I got really inspired and interested in this work was because when I was a student, I graduated during 2007, which was the recession, and I feel like even though I had done all the things I was supposed to do, like as a student, when I graduated, I just didn't feel very prepared in my career to take advantage of like all the different opportunities. And I started to want to like do more things, try new things. And it just like really struggled with like how. And the recession was like such a bad time to graduate and get a job. And so, anyways, long story short, I basically ended up becoming more interested in technology. But as I started becoming more interested in technology and seeing how people were helping other people use it or integrate it, I noticed that everybody was starting with the technology. And it just so happened that I was working at a medical school, and in that school I was a history teacher, and so to be in like a medical like space was just like very like foreign to me. And so I had no choice really but to listen. And so it was very organic in that like people would share things and I'd be like, "Oh, well, have you tried this or did you know about this?" And what I realized was such a huge increase in people's enthusiasm with that approach. So I always say, like, I kind of like fell across it like by mistake. But then at the same time, and at that time, I didn't really have a name for it. I was just like, oh, wow, like, we're like, this is working so much better than it was in the other places I was at. But then I went to a conference and I saw two first grade teachers, and they were talking about this method called design thinking. And the thing that really resonated with me was empathy. And I think that's what really distinguishes design thinking from pretty much any other framework that's out there. I think even sometimes people will have like, user interviews and they'll do like all these other pieces. But empathy is like a very it's a very, very, very unique, like you can't even replace the word really, where you are really not just interviewing somebody and like, oh, tell me about this or whatever, but you're observing, you're immersing yourself, you are looking at things through different angles. And a lot of times through the empathy work, it's not that you find out everything in that one moment. It's like these insights that kind of emerge over time because it's just an embedded part of everything you do because it's that mindset, right? So you have that empathy driven mindset. And that's kind of where I learned that like innovation, like if we want these cultures of innovation where everyone's able to do things and everything's moving forward, we have to create like these cultures of empathy.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree upon that point. We're talking about, method and mindset being a part of design thinking, and that is helping the person to navigate the unknown and start something new. And again, like you said, it's about fostering creativity and problem solving through empathy, observation, and collaboration. And like you said, the inspiration came from personal experience for you after graduating, realizing the need for more practical skills. And while working at a medical school as a history teacher, you witnessed a surge in the enthusiasm with different innovative approaches that could be implemented, and people's mindset shifting from using normal techniques to more of amazing, easy to go with techniques which could help them with their work a lot. And design thinking stood out to you at a conference as a transformative tool with empathy as its core. And again, it's going to focus and is focusing on understanding the real needs and creating lot more meaningful solutions in education.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I feel like your podcast and like what you're doing right now is such a great example of that. Like, I'd love to hear from you. Like, how did you get the idea to do this? And like, what are some of the mindset things that you have to do to keep kind of coming on? Because it's hard
Oh,
work.
that's a really good question. Like, I started this podcast back in 2020, and we'd be hitting the 100th episode on November 16th. So that'd be 4 years. And it was just like I was learning new things during the lockdown. And I have this personality type that if I am learning something, I want to make something out of it. And I think it comes in the design thinking aspect that if you're learning, you make a prototype out of it and then you implement it. So I think learning about what podcasting it is, I went about creating my own and then implementing by starting my own podcast. And it the purpose was to have a three-way learning platform for me to learn from my guests, having the audience listen to the guests, and giving a platform to the guests to come and share their learning experiences and empower people about the importance of game-based learning, STEM, and classroom engagement. And like it has also developed my confidence as a person. If I compare like episode 1 to now, I can speak more freely, I can express my thoughts properly. So I think like starting new ventures, and of course it comes as a part as a design thinking that you learn step by step, you add new approaches, you learn from your mistakes, and then you try, retry, get feedback. So I think it's amazing listening to guests and giving a platform for others to listen to them.
I love that. Yeah, no, especially that confidence piece. I think that's such an important mindset that like nobody talks enough about. Like creativity, critical thinking, all these other things. Like you need confidence to like execute on ideas and to like put yourself out there. It's like a very like I don't know. It can be scary. It can be hard at any age. So like I really admire like what you're doing.
Thank you so much. It means a lot. Right. So we were talking about design thinking. Could you also share some examples of how design thinking has led to tangible changes in the classroom?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you one of the biggest ones because I think this is one that we talk about a lot right now with AI. So when technology kind of like first, like especially I think mobile devices first became very prominent, there was very much this idea of like the digital native, the idea that, oh, well, students were born with these devices, so they must know how to use them. And very quickly, what the research told us was that just because you can use a device in your personal life doesn't mean that you can use it in your academic and professional life. And so that's why we see a lot of the challenges I think now that we do with like just social media, cell phone use across the board for everybody. And when I first started again at this medical school, this is where I feel like I learned the most. When I first started there, I wasn't really sure like what direction we would go in or what like our strategies would be. And so I was observing some of the classes that the students were taking. And I was really intrigued by how they were taking notes because they would just download like the PowerPoints from Blackboard. And I could tell they were just listening for what was missing on the slide. So they weren't like listening to learn. I mean, they were learning, but like it was they were more interested in what is not being said, what's going to be on the test, and what should I know. And I just thought it was like really interesting, like how they were taking notes. And they had all these devices. Many of them had a laptop and an iPad, a laptop and a phone. Some had three devices. And so we asked them, like, like, has anyone ever taught you like how to use your technology to like take notes so that you're not like in the presenter notes of PowerPoint? And it was a unanimous no. Not one single person had taught these like graduate students how to actually use their technology for meaningful note taking and not even note taking, but just like idea, like documentation, really, and analysis and synthesis and all these other things. So, what we ended up also learning was that the students didn't want to learn new technology while they were learning content. And so these things, and like when I went in there was very much the assumption that if we just teach the faculty how to use technology, then everything will be fine. But what we really realized was that the students were a little bit more resistant to some of these new practices. And so we ended up creating a new orientation for students before they came into the program, where they could basically learn how to use their device. We agreed as a faculty upon a core set of tools that everybody would use across the board in all classes so that they weren't having to see different tools in different classes. And this to me was probably like the most powerful example because that one little tweak went from students hating, like we had a one-to-one iPad program, they went from hating the iPads to 98% of students saying they helped them feel more engaged and 96% students saying we would recommend this to other people. So this was a really, really, really big turnaround. And it really came from just like one observation. There were a lot of assumptions being made, assumptions that the students already know how to use technology, assumptions that the students are going to be okay with these new kinds of learning, the assumption that it was the educators, the faculty that needed more help and more things. And so this is what happens like when you start with assumptions. The empathy really kills those assumptions. And so anything if you're thinking and all these assumptions, any solution you create is going to be based on your assumptions. And so this is why I think a lot of times people struggle to scale their solutions or to integrate them successfully because you're working off of assumptions versus data. And data can obviously be quantitative, like numbers and all these things, but that qualitative data that comes from observations and conversations is so invaluable. That's probably like my favorite example.
True that, and that's why people focus on the importance of quality over quantity. And absolutely, like design thinking has led to tangible changes by addressing the real needs of students, like you talked about, especially with technology use in the classroom. Like initially, students were interested in the test related content and they struggled with note taking, using PPTs or were hesitant to use tools like iPads. They didn't want to learn technology alongside with the content because that created a resistance that they have to, focus on learning both. By observing these challenges and applying empathy and a new orientation and set of tools were developed, and that's what helped to shift students thinking from hating technology to loving the iPad usage. And again, the process of understanding their assumptions and adapting the different teaching methods and changing it to the way they can actually understand it shows and proves the fact that design thinking can break assumptions, and with empathy it can create a long lasting impact. Right. So how do you think that AI can implement human creativity into educational settings?
Oh, wow. I think there's so many opportunities for that. I think one of the biggest things I notice is that we really limit our own definitions of creativity. And I think just because of the many different like systems and everything that we're just a part of, we've also really forgotten those creative parts of ourselves. So to me, before AI can even help with anything, there has to be some kind of like introspection and just like reflection on your own skills and strengths, on your own hopes and dreams, and just on your own values and like what you want your life to look like. Because otherwise, I think it goes two ways. I think people who have more self-awareness, people who are more in tune with like people like you who are already doing these things, they're passionate about different topics, like they're not just doing what they're being told to do. These people have a very, very, very unique advantage because we call this the human advantage. Because people like you, when AI comes, you will just 10x your ability to do things, right? If now you're doing maybe one podcast a week, maybe tomorrow you'll do 3 podcasts a week. But that AI can do so many things, but like what you're doing right now, like that is the ultimate human piece, right? So people who already have this idea of like, I want to do this, I want to go here, this is what motivates me, this is what drives me. When tools like AI come along, they can amplify your creativity. But people who do not haven't had the opportunity, because we all have these things within us. It's just a matter of, do you know them about yourself or not? People who have not had this opportunity, what we see is when AI comes in, it just accelerates things that you don't like, because these are the things you think you have to do. And so you start using AI to do this. And then tomorrow you're just going to have to do more of this. So, this is the thing, AI will amplify and accelerate whatever sort of you feed it. So, if you are feeding it sort of like these substitution, these rote, these mundane tasks that we don't even like all the time. And I want to be clear, that's not to say that AI isn't good at mundane tasks. It absolutely is. But the problem with the person who uses it for like emails, this and this, like all these other things that we're seeing it for, and they don't have the more ambitious goals, you will end up doing more of this. Whereas the people with more ambitious goals about their own skills and strengths and the things they want to do, the impact they want to have, those people will use AI to accelerate that goal. So I guess that's what I would say is, it's not so much will AI accelerate creativity, will accelerate the goals that you have set out for yourself, for your organization, for your community. And then ultimately, that is the ripple effect that we will see in the world, right? Like, what are all the different things that people do individually? How are we using AI? Are we using it? Like everybody says right now, like, there are incredible opportunities for what's possible, but there are also incredible risks. So if we can amplify the opportunity, you can then work to mitigate the risks. But if we don't, then you get this like unbalance that's sort of over here. And I think the number one thing I've sort of come down to that I think is just so important for people is agency. And agency isn't just like, oh, I choose to do something, or I can pick what I want to do. Agency is you understand how things influence you, right? Because algorithms have so much control over how we think, what we watch, what we do, what we buy. Like they're just a part of every single element of our life. But if you don't understand how those algorithms are shaping you, which is now going to come in all aspects of society, real agency is knowing I can shape this too. I have agency and control over the technology in my life. And the reason I really think about this a lot these days is because I see so many people wanting to like ban technologies. And I think that one of the reasons people ban technologies is because they don't understand how to shape those systems. And so then they're vulnerable, right? Like I feel like social media is like such a great example. Nobody really taught anybody how to have agency over these devices, like a digital detox for a week, or like, these silly little things are not how you have agency. You have to understand how these systems work so that you can understand how you can shape them in return. And I feel like right now we just have social media, but I feel like tomorrow, like it's just going to be in all elements of our life. And so that to me is like sort of where I think it's not like, is it going to amplify creativity? Because most people don't even know what creativity means. Most people have like, if you ask them like, oh, what do you mean by creativity? Everybody will say something different, or somebody will say nothing at all.
Indeed, I agree with that. I mean, we have to take the upper edge control, and we need to know how to shape different kind of technologies and how we have to use it according to our needs. And again, AI can complement human creativity in education settings when it's going to act as a powerful amplifier of the existing skills and ideas that an individual has already inside them. And those who are self aware and introspective about their abilities, they can leverage AI to enhance their creative output tenfold, I think. And while AI is able to provide us with tools and insights, the core ideas and foundational skills still comes from being a human. So if we are able to help use the help of AI to amplify that, I think by streamlining different processes and offering new perspectives, AI can allow educators and students to push the boundaries of creativity and again help them to think beyond the traditional limits and bring their visions to life in the most dynamic ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, I would love to ask you, how can teachers redesign their assessments to match the skills required for the future workforce?
There are honestly so many ways to do this, like so many ways to do this. And this is actually a very important topic. This is where I go back to the introspection, right? Like, can AI amplify creativity? You could apply that to, can AI amplify assessment? Can AI amplify like any of these pieces? But if you don't do the work to be like, okay, what have we struggled with so far in doing this? What has been holding us back? What is so hard for us to overcome to get to this space? You will again use the tool, as we're seeing so many people do, to just amplify and accelerate existing types of learning. And one of the things that, remember, I shared earlier the note taking example, one of the biggest things that opened once students had confidence in how to use their tools well, and they understood the value and they saw and experienced the value, it was very, I don't want to say easy, but it was very like the pathway was open to be able to do more advanced kinds of work. So one of the things we did was there's a paper the students write. I mean, they write many papers, but there's a paper the students write in their first year where USC is very much like it's surrounded by underserved communities. And so they make a big effort to partner with these communities. And one of the things they want their students to do is do their rotations in these different communities. So in their first year, the students are each assigned a city in Los Angeles. And the goal is for them to develop empathy with, the people in that city, to learn about that city and all these different things. And they have like 13 different indicators they're supposed to look at. And normally it ended up being about a 40-page paper. Well, through observations, we learned that most students were using Google to write the paper and they weren't actually going out there. And so what we did was, this is such a great example of design thinking. Like, I love this because so many times when people hear your question, they think they have to throw everything out and start from scratch. And it's like all these pieces. But everything was pretty much the same, except for one thing. We changed the question we were asking them. Instead of go write a paper on this community and talk about these different things, it was, if this community had a story for healthcare providers, what would the story be? And then they had to basically create a mini documentary, like 5 to 6 minutes, telling that story of the community. So they got to learn about what it means to interview people. They got to talk about what it means to align, like how do you align research and data with audio and visual like elements. They got to learn video editing. They got to learn like just technical things about like wireless mics and just like filming and just these different things. But it was so, so, so incredible to see how there was still research involved, right? They were still writing, they were still doing the drafts, they were still doing all these pieces, but that actual final product was something that like if you go on the USC primary care PA program YouTube, you can see all these videos. That to me is like a portfolio piece. Now you can use that when you are doing applying for scholarship and like applications, when you are applying for like jobs, to show that like this is how I'm involved in my community and these are the things that I do. And so to me, being able to help people create projects that are meaningful to them, that demonstrate and showcase who they are and what they do, opens the door to building relationships with people you might want to work with. And what I also love about that approach is too often the burden is on the student or the graduate to go and find the job. When you create a portfolio and you are building a network and you are putting yourself and your ideas out there and you're connecting, kind of like exactly how me and you are right now, you now put yourself in a position where other people can find you. And so now it's not just the one burden on you, it's over here as well. And so I think this ability to move towards more meaningful kinds of projects that allow people to work with, maybe we're going to partner with our local business community. Are we going to partner with people in other schools? Are we going to partner with like other organizations? Like, you have so many more opportunities for what you can create, what you can do that's actually real, while still honoring the elements we need, like reading, writing, like, but also speaking and presenting and sharing and networking. Like, the skills have just expanded so much. And, these skills are not optional anymore, right? Especially in a world with AI. Like, these skills are just as essential as reading, writing, math, and all these other pieces. So I would say that the one really important thing for people to know about that is that's not new. Like, that project that I just shared about the documentary, um, we did that in 2014. So, like, when you think about, we have tools like Canva, we've had tools like, StreamYard, we've had tools like Explain Everything, we've had iPads. Like, the technology has been there to do this work for the last decade at least. The question is, what is holding humans back from actually moving in this direction? And that, to me, is where AI plays a very, very, very significant role, because it is hard work to make that shift. But for your AI tools, it's like not very hard at all. Like, they can do it in seconds. And so I feel like when people learn how to, this is why I go back to ambitious goals. Because if all you're going to ask your AI tool for is a 5-question quiz, or like another, like, paper for the kids to write so that they can write it with AI and then you go home and grade it with AI, this is like a really, really, really ridiculous kind of like foundation for teaching and learning, like in an AI world. And so we really want to, again, take a step back. We call this prompting the human before the machine, taking a step back, asking people, what do we really want to create? What do we really want to build? We have such incredibly powerful tools at our fingertips. What are we going to do with it? Are we just going to repeat what we've always been doing? Or are we actually going to take a moment to do something different?
Indeed, that is really considerable. It's like identifying the problem first, and then we're focusing upon creating the solution, because that is important. And rightly said by you, teachers can redesign their assessments by shifting from those traditional methods to more meaningful skill based evaluations that align with the future workforce. And this requires, again, introspection to identify the current challenges and a willingness to change their approaches whenever required. And instead of focusing solely on memorization, teachers can encourage students to take part in projects or create projects that build the real world relevance, foster more collaboration, and again, are encouraging relationship building. Because when we're incorporating portfolios, the networking that we've done and those opportunities allow the students to showcase their growth. And again, it's emphasizing the four C's of critical thinking, communication, collaboration, and creativity, where teachers can equip the students with the 21st century skills, which are very much needed for tomorrow's and today's workforce.
Absolutely.
Right. So I have a fun question for you before we go into the next one. If you were to live on a desert island but could only take one thing with you, what would it be?
Oh my God. Wow. Hmm. Would I have Wi-Fi on the desert island?
No.
Okay. What would I take with me? Wow, that's such an interesting question. I actually have no idea. That's so hard. Um, 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 I feel like this would be so weird, but honestly, I would probably take, maybe I would take, like, if there was honestly like no Starlink, no nothing, no like way or method of communication at all, I would probably take a photo of my family, because I feel like, it's one of the things I share these days is like, the work we're doing in education right now has to be so personal. Because when work or anything is personal to you, your motivation through things that you think you could never go through is completely different. How you speak about things, how you talk about things, how you show up to things is completely different. And so I feel like I think especially when those things happen, it's so easy, like, especially if you're, like, stranded, like, it can be so easy to, like, lose touch with reality. And so, yeah, I guess I would want, like, a photo of my family to, like, remind me that, like, I could go back, I guess.
Oh, that's a really nice answer. And honestly, I had the same one that I would like either I would love to take a picture of my family, and if I had another opportunity, I would maybe take some books along because I'm an avid reader, and because I've been like in grade 12, lots of studying and examinations going on, so I'm not having enough time to read. But if I do
Oh,
get the opportunity, I'll take the pending books that I have, and I'm gonna read those.
love it.
We have a lot of comments coming in the chat today. We have Michelle Amond joining us today. What would
Hey.
you add to the resistance to?
Resistance to technology, probably, yeah. Um, I would just attribute it to, like, not knowing. Like, I see a lot of, I have yet to go into a room where I don't see 90% of the people do a 180. Especially, I think, when I'm working with teachers, and I think a really big part of it is the more pressure you experience in whatever your role is, the more expectations that are put on you, very rigid expectations. Like, we all have expectations are a good thing, like, we all have them. But the more rigid the expectations are on you, and the more you feel like, "I just need to do this, I just have to do this, like, these are the things I need to do," that is the space where we see people not having the time to really reconnect with themselves. And so when people do get a chance to, we open every single one of our workshops with the question, if you could hire an AI team, what are the 3 jobs you would hire for? And we have people list those. We have them create job descriptions. We have them, like, look at, like, what the AI will do, what you will do, and it's so eye-opening to people, and this is why I go back to, there's too many people who introduce AI to people. Here's Magic School, here's Diffit, like, here's these 10 apps. You can make your life easier, easier, easier. Okay, well, if my life becomes so easy, what am I doing? And if you cannot answer that question, my life becomes easier. Now, what am I going to be able to do? You can have all the AI in the world. You're not going to experience the actual opportunity that it's bringing you because you never stop to really think about, well, what are my personal professional goals? Like, what do I want my life to look like? I think there's a lot of people right now, I think, maybe worldwide, but I'll speak just specifically to the United States, that are not happy in the things that they're doing. And we hear it at every age level. People think it's just young people, but every single age level, people are overworked, people are burnt out, people don't have the time they need with their families. I was just thinking of this the other day, like, because there's so much conversation about, like, well, we'll just do universal basic income, or, the rich companies are just going to start having to, like, give out things. Like, we're a country that doesn't even give mothers 2 weeks, like, let alone 2 days of maternity leave unless they work for, like there's such an equity gap in, like, how we treat people and what we do. So, like, I think that, like, this is a moment to really lean into, like, who do we want to be as a society? What are things that just, like, wow, like, these are really unhuman things? And what are we going to change about those things? And I think once people have those conversations, automatically people are more motivated, they're more ambitious, and the resistance just drops to zero because, well, now we're actually doing things that are meaningful to us. So for too long, I think also, we have a very bad relationship with technology, I think, as well. And this is across the board in many spaces. We have more notifications than we can handle. We have more Slack, email, all these other messages coming in than we can handle. We have just, like, too much information that comes at us all the time that I just don't think is normal for, like, how our brain can handle and manage. And again, remember I told you this is why I go back to agency, because if you don't understand how to shape these systems, they will end up shaping you, and it creates a lot of tension and friction and resistance.
Indeed, that's really, really well said, Dr. Sabha. And there's another comment. I really see a lot of tech trainer in India following your design thinking concept and use your strategies and programs to train educators in schools.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's one of the spaces where we see so much design thinking. We see so many just different examples of different schools. Like, I mean, just like so many different ones that, are there.
Right? Another comment by Michelle Amond. Assumption kills innovation. We have to be mindful about not climbing the ladder of inference. True.
Yeah, totally.
By Mr. Pravleen Singh. Programming the designs with respect to school functioning is such a remarkable state of the infrastructure for sure. Yes, the algorithm is the central point by which visualization for AI application can be sought. Right. Amplify and accelerate. Thoughtful and generous lesson is in every episode. Two shining inspirations right now on my screen. Oh, thank you.
Oh, so sweet.
There's another question. Well, Dr. Sabha, how can we inculcate various new age skills among students despite of certain individual differences?
That's a really good question. Wait, sorry, can you bring it up one more time?
Well, Dr. Sabha, how can we inculcate various new age skills among students despite of certain individual differences?
Amazing. So, like, one of the things that we always recommend that we think is really nice is like to do some kind of like strengths assessment. I think one of the challenges, right, when I said like, how do we create these more ambitious goals and how do we do these different kinds of things, we often don't have the language to tell ourselves what those things are, or the language to even express that, even if we want to. So there's a free test. It's not a personality test. It's called the Spark type. It's like SPARKE and then type TYPE. So it's a sparktype.com. And what I love about the Spark type is it talks about what energizes you. And actually, when I was doing my research on, so like my research is all on why design thinking is the method that we should be kind of like, teaching people in the age of AI. But one of the things that one of the people shared when we were doing the interviews, she said, when we come together to collaborate, we begin by asking what energizes you. Because if you're somebody who like loves technology and like loves like learning new tools and finding what's going to work, and the other person over here is somebody who loves data, and this person over here loves writing, why would everybody do things that they don't like when these people love doing these pieces? So when we understand what energizes us, it gives us more, I guess, it gives us more agency, right? To know, okay, this is the best place for me. This is how I can influence something. This is where I perform my best. And this is what makes me happy. That's not to say we can do that 100% of the time. But if you can create a life where you're doing what energizes you 80% of the time, I mean, that's not a bad like ratio to have, right? And kind of like work your way up. And so we really find that like first of all, having some kind of tool to help you articulate what those elements are about yourself gives you the foundation to and the confidence to actually understand what comes next. Then from there, I really feel like design thinking experiences cover all the skills, right? They cover the creative confidence, the making, the iterating, the learning from failure, the empathy. I'm probably forgetting the so many others, but I feel like design thinking teaches you take one step at a time. If something's too overwhelming, if there's no answer, that's why the one of the favorite phrases that in design thinking is like, how might we, right? We don't know how we're going to do it, but how might we do something? I don't know. And that's what design thinking I think really gives you the confidence with, is that I don't know what the answers are, and also I don't have to know what the answers are. In fact, I shouldn't. Any answers I do think I know, I need to like put them aside and be able to just have that beginner's mind and engage with other people who are going to help me see different perspectives and things like that. I think it really also teaches communication between different stakeholders and how to have hard conversations. This is probably one of the most important skills that young people, I wouldn't say need, I would say need adults to help create permission for more, and that is being able to express themselves. I see a world right now where so many people are like, what do we need to teach young people? What do we need to do? I mean, you need to step back, is what you need to do. And you need to start having some accountability for the systems that are blocking their voices. We You can turn on any TV channel right now, any social media channel right now, and even if you just think about the past 1 year, young people have been silenced, for all different kinds of perspectives and in all the different kinds of ways, in so many different ways that I think a lot of times we're really afraid to have, like, these hard conversations because the one thing I've really realized in the last 1 year, just through world events and everything that we've seen unfold, is that solving your education system alone is not going to be the solution. Education systems and the world people graduate into, the political, economic, and social systems they graduate into deeply impact what they're able to do. And this to me is one of the greatest equity issues of our time because there are some people that can do certain things, but if we cannot scale those environments for everybody, I mean, to me, that's like the erosion of public society, right? Like that's where you have only a few group of people that can do things and not, this is like the complete opposite of what the democracy and what a system like ours is really supposed to, honor and create and provide for people.
Indeed, I absolutely agree with that. Thank you so much for asking that question. Thank you
What
for
is that like?
answering.
And I'm so curious for you, like from your perspective, especially given like look at what you're doing on a weekend versus like in school. How would you answer that question?
I think if it comes to my perspective, I would agree with the same thing like you talked about, that inculcating new age amongst like different people, it's about how you manage your routine or what kind of activities are you getting engaged in. So if you're talking about new age skills, it's absolutely like if you're studying in the classroom, most of the time we're focused upon just reading what is given in the books or whatever the teacher is teaching. But then sometimes we do ask them, like, what exactly is the skill that we're learning from it? And most of the times they're like, it's just needed. You may not know or implement that in the future. But if you're off school, and you're exploring something online, you're learning different AI skills, and then you're able to learn that, okay, I learned this in my classroom of political science or in history, and I can see how it is being merged with the different skills like AI, and how I'll be able to implement that in the future, or how it's going to help me to enhance my skills. So I think it brings a quite a difference of how you're able to upskill yourself in school through different subjects, or how you're able to do it yourself when you're learning or engaging in self-paced learning. I mean, there are different subjects that actually tell you what skills you need. But then if you're engaging yourself in self-paced learning and you go explore more and you see what different tools can help you to upskill yourself or learn more life skills in a way, I think that will be better. Because I think I whenever I've learned something in my classroom and I've explored some more tools online, or I've read something about it, and I'm able to relate to it, that yeah, I read about this somewhere, and I can see this subject being implemented somewhere in the future. So mostly it happens in political science, because I have a focus towards different political aspects when I'm studying in the classroom. So I'm able to relate to it. So I think it's about what you study in the classroom, and then you're exploring more yourself as well. I believe that's would be my perspective towards it.
Totally.
Right. So I think we've had an amazing discussion today. And before we sum up, we would love to know where we can find you online, and what message would you like to give to the audience that's listening to us right now?
Oh, well, thanks. No, thanks so much for having me. It was so nice to chat with you and just like watch everything you're doing. So I always say the easiest place is just the website. It's designingschools.org. From there, you can choose if you like Instagram, YouTube, we have podcasts, we have everything. So designingschools.org is the easiest. And I would just say, like, now is the time to really, like, I feel like, I always say the biggest irony of AI is we don't have time to make time to think about what's next. And so I would say, like, just 30 minutes a week, really reflecting on what matters to you, taking the spark type. I think the spark type is a game changer. You need language. You need language to say to yourself for what you can do. And so that would be my one thing. Take the spark type, and kind of see where you go from there, and really, really begin thinking about not just your life for the next 6 months or 1 year, but what will the world look like? Like, go onto Perplexity and ask, what is the world going to look like in 2030? This is my age. This is what I'm doing. What should I be thinking about? Like, this is the beauty of these AI tools. Like, we don't have to do this work alone. So yeah, that would be my thing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. In today's conversation, highlights the power of introspection, creativity, and of course, empathy in education, showing how design thinking, artificial intelligence, and meaningful assessments can prepare students for the future where human skills are just as crucial as technological skills. Thank you so much, Dr. Sabba, for your time and sharing your insightful thoughts with us today.
Thanks so much. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining and listening to this episode. I'll see you in the next one. Till then, each one, each 10. Have a nice day.